Hello, and welcome, worthy adventurers. No, wait, this isn't the start of a D&D campaign. This is the start of me painting and talking about D&D. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Haven's Paint and Chat. We're going to be talking about D&D, and we're going to be painting minis and talking about some of the other things that I enjoy about D&D. One of which will be foreshadowing, and I almost have actually decided I'm going to use this time to actually foreshadow to my players, if they decide to tune in, to see exactly what they might be facing later. I could have tried to hide those minis, but I really am excited about painting some of that stuff, and so it's kind of pointless at this point. I might as well paint them in front of them and use that kind of as foreshadowing so they know what's going on. In that manner, we're going to be painting this bad boy here. I do apologize for the bright light right here, but that sucks. But I can't really get it to go away without affecting everything else. So, but this little thing is going to be down in the corner here in a minute. But yeah, we're going to be painting the Deathwalker from Fat Dragon Games, which I picked up when I backed their Kickstarter. And it's really, really cool. Here, I'm going to switch it over so we actually can talk about the other stuff, and we'll go to the big camera so you guys can see this thing. I love this guy. Look at this. And it moves. It's a siege engine, okay? So what's really fun that I found when I started printing this guy was the fact that the gentleman who runs Fat Dragon Games and comes up with a lot of the models, and I think also, or at least hires a bunch of the models, Tom Tellis, was talking about this guy. I was really excited when I saw them put out the concept art for it during the Kickstarter, and I was like, really cool. And I immediately started thinking about ways that I could paint this guy, and then like what we would do for stats in D&D 5e for this bad boy. And so I came up with my own stats based off of another undead siege engine. And actually, you know what? I realized this miniature is not that small. I don't need reading glasses to see it. So I produced some of the first round of this guy, posted it on one of the forums for DMs for Dungeons and Dragons, and asked for some feedback on it. Got some feedback, and I've revamped it and come up with some other stats. I'm gonna draw the line there and not share the stats on this guy until after. But if you private message me, I will totally tell you the stats and share them to you. Not a problem. I just don't want my players to know too much, other than big honkin' skeleton siege engine, which they may or may not come across, and knowing my players, they may not. Side note, let's talk about the actual painting of the sucker. I was so geeked when I got everything printed for this guy. I really wanted to get them all assembled, and then really realized, like every other miniature I've ever done, that this would be a heck of a lot easier to paint if I hadn't assembled it. But I really wanted to see what it was going to look like when it was done, so yeah, I jumped the gun. I'm just going to finish cleaning up a little bit. I actually had some issues with these chains when I first printed them out, and I ended up having to reprint a bunch, and so I got to redo a few of them, and then redo it. Now, one of the things I love about Fat Dragon, also, for those who actually also are printing stuff out, the chains that go through this guy are... Oh, sorry.
Dude, stop it.
Use excess filament as the piece that goes through to hold it. So the chain comes up out of the inside and then comes down, and this is just extra filament. So the hole through the leg is just extra filament. These guys down here are just extra filament that you use to make it. It's a cool concept, because anybody who's done FDM printing, you have literally, well, if you're me, you have a drawer full of either excess filament or extra bits and pieces or failed prints and stuff left over. And actually, like this little gear shifter up here is also just an extra little chunk of filament, and I don't know if the camera's going to pick that up. But yeah, the little tiny shifter knob right here is just some extra filament that I had. One of the guys who printed one of these guys out, they actually used they printed off a skull staff from some other mini. They schooled just that and printed just the skull-headed staff, so it looks like a skull gear shifter, which was a really cool idea. I just didn't have the skills to do that yet. Other side note when it comes to painting, yes, if it wasn't snowing in Michigan, I would totally have primed this before printing it. But it's snowing, and I live in Michigan. But the nice thing about FDM is the fact that you really don't... It's very forgiving, and so I can paint almost directly onto the plastic because it's so porous, and it really does stick, unlike some of the resin models I've painted or some of the plastic models that come from injection molding or even some of the metal ones, where you really need that primer to help grip the paint and hold it on place. With the FDM stuff, it's so rigid and it's got so much actual texture to it. It actually holds paint pretty well. And if you do have some bigger ridges, using some of the more cheaper paints, like I'm just using this, basically Craft Essentials paint and Red Barrel or Apple Barrel, right, hon? Was Apple Barrel is the other one from like Michaels?
I don't remember.
By the way, just because I want to say this stream is brought to you by Rootjack. Okay. No, not really. I bought this and it shipped to me because I'm that guy. And I know that the player who's currently watching this right now is probably going, "Aww." So yeah, anyway, FDM printing is really, really forgiving when it comes to it. So I'm just going to say screw it. We're just going to paint directly onto this guy. And I'm going to start with all of the bone. So I'm just going to do some white across the skull, on the front, and on the legs, up and around. The rest of this is going to, and then on these tusks across the top, I'm going to do white as well. Then I'm going to go back in and we'll bring out all of the metal rivets and the wood, and the big battering ram as well. We'll do in wood. And then there's actually the spacer down here, which I am going to paint up probably in a tan color, since I plan on having this guy originally show up in a desert. But I really doubt anybody's actually going to see it. So yeah, no, FDM is super forgiving when it comes to the fact that I'm not going to prime this. A bunch of the tiles I've been working with, because it's been so cold for so long here in Michigan, I have not had a chance to actually go out and prime since probably October. It was snowing on Halloween here, okay? Let's just give you an idea. All of you kids who were able to actually go outside for trick-or-treating this year, like, bullshit. I know, we didn't get any trick-or-treaters. But that's a whole other story. Pandemic and all that kind of fun stuff. But normally, like, okay, there's a side note. I'm just going to go off on a tangent. I've lived in Michigan most of my life. I've lived in a few other states, but in Michigan most of my life. And I've never had a Halloween where we weren't trying to put our costumes on over winter clothing. So all of you who do get to wear those nice outfits for Halloween, be happy about it. So now, because there isn't a primer on this, I will have to put on like a couple of layers. So be prepared that this is going to have lots and lots of layers on it. Okay. Now, unlike last time when I did this and I just kind of talked for almost an hour and a half about nothing, in my opinion, I wrote down some ideas and I wrote down some talking points so I could have something to chat about. Let's talk about plot hooks, since that's the one thing I got asked more times since this last time I was streaming. Let's talk plot hooks. And specifically, how to get your players involved in plot hooks. The first thing I will tell almost every new DM when it comes to the fact of doing their big plot hook or the opening plot hook. One, never have your end game be your opening plot hook. That is one of the few things I will start off with. I like doing mine in chapters. To give you an idea, The Wandering Few is currently set up as a 3-parter, like a trilogy, because some of the best stories come in trilogies. And so I had a plot hook for the first part, for part 1, and then another plot hook for part 2. But let's go back to that first part, because that's the question I got asked actually directly recently was how to get your characters, the players, involved and wanting to be involved in your campaign. And unfortunately, I know this might sound like blunt, but be blunt. Your players want to play. They have already, if you already have players who are playing in your campaign, more than likely they want to play. They want to be part of this game. You can be rather blunt and say, this is the storyline we're going to be playing. How do you want your character to be involved? That's fine, especially if you're just getting your teeth wet with doing this. Be blunt. Get feedback from them even. Maybe find ways to tie in their character's backstory with the current, with your idea. Like, start off from scratch with having each player, individually even if you want, figure out how they're going to tie their character and their character's backstory into your opening plotline. There's no rule book that says you can't do that. You don't have to come up with everything from scratch. You can lean on their creativity too and bring that into the into your creativity and come up with something, and then go to your next player and have them. And what you're don't maybe not have them all talk together, or have them talk together. Do it as your session 0 with everybody talking about how and why their character would be involved in this story. It's perfectly fine, and if nothing else, you have now just given them a reason for being there, and that player is more invested in the storyline right off the bat because it's partially theirs at that point. Go for there's nothing that says you have to come up with everything, and there's also nothing that says that you can't just outright tell them up front, here's the storyline. Hey guys, this is a dungeon crawl. We're gonna go after some magical items. Local lords are hiring you to clear out a knoll den, so why would you be in that town, and why would you've already accepted that contract? Sure, start off that way. There's no reason why not to. And then again, you've got your players invested. Now they can tell you and help come up with a reason why. You're not now having to role play out convincing the characters to come along, which is 2 different stories, by the way, because I've had that happen. The player was really interested in playing and doing it, but he really wanted to play a character that was reluctant, the reluctant hero, which is, while a trope, still very popular. For Pete's sakes, one of my favorite TV shows had the reluctant hero as the captain, if you go all the way back to Firefly. So, as long as the players are involved, you should be good, and there's nothing that says you can't be blunt to them up front. When I started up when I tried to run Horde of the Dragon Queen, the first part of the Rise of Tiamat, or the Rise of Dragons, or whatever the title of that whole thing is, I went to every character and actually asked them, like, all right, so this is a dragon fighting campaign. That is the whole point of this. What would your character? What's the link? Why is your character here? What's your character's reason for hunting dragons? We came up with that ahead of time, or was it something completely side? I don't want to say side quest because that's not right. For instance, I'll pick on my wife. When Kala's character Remy was in that campaign, she really liked the backstory she'd already written for that character for another campaign we were running it in. And so we basically sat down and figured out how we were going to take her backstory with a highly religious father and overbearing highly religious father, and mix that in with the dragon stuff, which actually in that campaign was pretty simple. I just made her father part of the cult of the dragon as part of the religion part of it. And that worked out. It was still part of the dragon, but the kicker was the whole religious cult thing was what she wanted to keep playing with. And that was easy enough to tie in just with a little bit of creativity. Now that character has a reason for being there. Even if it's something we were going to reveal later to the rest of the party. Because I don't think we told the party up front, did we? We told the party that you had when Remy came into the party, you simply told them you had a bad past. Remy had a bad past or something like that. Or you were running from your dad. Or you did mention something like you were running away from your family. Or
I think I basically mentioned that my father's a total jackass and I wanted nothing more to do with him. And he was trying to marry me off to somebody who I did not want to be married to. So I took off.
Yeah.
Never saying that, he was a cult leader.
Right. So.
Or at least involved in a cult, in my opinion.
Right. So there's the thing. But so we had this, secret part of it where we talked about it already being there, and we used that as a reveal later on for the rest of the party. So yeah, opening plot hooks, be blunt sometimes. If nothing else, it helps with the creativity part of it. It gets everybody involved and gets everybody happy-go-lucky with it. So. Now, side plots. Totally different beast. When it comes to throwing side plots and, for lack of a better term, the ever-popular side quests that people, that are so many players love to come on. First off, sometimes your players will latch onto something and next thing you know, you're writing a side plot because they decided to save the bartender's daughter, who they took your silence of thinking of how this bartender, which you hadn't created until like 10 minutes beforehand when they needed a tavern they wanted to stop at, and took your silence as him being upset about something, and so offhandedly you make a comment about his daughter being sick, and now the adventurers want to go find the antidote for some curse that the child has, or disease or whatnot, and now you're off and on your way because you offhandedly gave them an idea. That never really happened in real life for me. No, never. Not in this group, actually. That was a while ago. But if you do have side plots, that actually goes back to some of my fun of not fully flushing out your storyline right away. I plan on actually sitting down and writing up some good notes on how I write a homebrew campaign from scratch, and that will be an entire evening's discussion right off the top, because I have a way I do it. But I will say that the not planning everything out allows me to throw side quests in whenever I really want to. Most recently with the Wandering Few, it was the Pirate Island and the Illithids holding pirates for ransom for an exchange for slaves, and I threw that together and I went, okay, I'm going to wait until they're on the water. When I finally get them on the water, I will throw a mutiny at them with the pirates, introduce the pirates. After the mutiny was resolved, whether that mean they decided to go along with being captured, or if they decided to revolt and fight the mutiny, which we all knew they would, I had them introduce that, oh, woe is me, we're being bad guys because of XYZ, and we're not really the bad guy kind of concept, threw that plot line at them. To be brutally honest, the party could have completely ignored it. You pirates are doing bad things, and could have, the party could have easily just simply said, here's a dinghy, get back to, go back to your island, and walked away from it. And that would have been fine. They could have moved on. They would have been, they would have moved on with the rest of the main plot line. It's just simply ignoring that side quest. Here's the kicker, though. I had written, I wrote it loosely. I had a rough idea of how it was going to go. And if they'd ignored it and moved on and just kept doing what they wanted to do and kept going with the main plot line, I would just have that island get worse and worse. And eventually have, I would tell them via a town crier or something that the marauding, pirates are now taking so many ships at sea that trading is starting to become affected. and maybe I might have a trading cartel hire them to go deal with the pirates, kind of thing, and maybe that would have been the next plot line to throw it at them. So the point is to throw out the hook, the plot hook. I mean, let's use fishing terms. You're throwing out a plot hook at them, and if they bite, great. If they don't throw it away. That plot, that hook you threw at them, still's happening in your world. Just put a pin in it. Find a way to bring it back up later. Oh, that works. I'm just going to paint this guy upside down. Ha ha ha. Oh, sorry, my head is in the way. There we go. Put a pin in it and come back to it later. And then, have it either get worse or maybe the situation changes. The players are leveling up as all this is going on, right? So why not have the encounter? If you'd originally planned this encounter for them to show up at like level, I don't know, let's just throw like a number out there. Level 5 is when you first throw the plot hook out and they ignore it. Well, okay. Figure out another time you want to throw it at them, and then figure out how you're going to change and modify it so that when you throw it at them at level 8, how is now that side quest going to get harder and scale for the adventurers? Yeah, I hope that all makes sense. There's my little bit on taking on side questing and how to throw out a side hook or a side plot hook, I guess. But come up with a bunch of them. I will say this much: I don't necessarily come up with all of my plot hooks and all of my side quests on my own. I like to think that I am a very creative person, but I also know that there are times when I need a little bit of help. So, for all you DMs who are just possibly looking for a little bit of help, I want to say it's, I am going to blank on this, but I will try and remember the name of it. But if you search for D&D job board, and I want to say it's Might and Something or Might and Stone, have literally a job posting board where it all looks like scrolls that were put up on top of it on a tavern wall with all of these little hints of side quests that you can come up with. There's the troll is demanding tolls and they used to be stopped because it's hindering trade to the city. I use this actually heavily with the campaign that I'm currently running with Wandering Few. When we took a break for 2 months, when they finished chapter 1, I had the actual characters take a break for like 2 months just to rest up, spend their money, do some research, do some side stuff. And the character, Angie, the player wanted her to go take some side jobs because she was not one to just sit around and enjoy her wealth. She wanted to go do some stuff. And I went on the job board and I found a bunch that I thought would fit and I threw them at her and she was like, okay, I want to do that one and that one and that one. And we then kind of more or less wrote it out as opposed to role played it out. But we kind of talked about how, all right, we took that one, you get this kind of bonus, they pay you this much money, and you've made this kind of encounter. It went pretty well for you, and it was just really quick, but it gave her like 3 or 4 odd jobs to do during this 2-month break that everybody else did. But it was a great resource. I didn't have to come up with it just is a list of all these side quests and then a rough payment of like, stop the goblins that are harassing a goat herder or rescue a princess, and some of them those are just the most generic ones, but there are tons. It's just literally tons, and they put out more. I found it actually, as funny as it sounds, I follow a couple of Twitter accounts. Twitter, 2 T's, not 2 D's. I follow a couple of Twitter accounts that are nothing but plot hook ideas that they post like once or twice a day. They just throw out random generated plot hooks. And the ones that I like, I retweet and I save them. The part that the party is in now, that is part 2 of the Wandering Few campaign, was actually started off as one of those plot hooks that somebody threw out as just a random one. And I went, oh, well, I want to run that, and so that became part 2, just because. But yeah.
There's a question of what if you have a party that actively runs away from hooks?
Ooh, okay, actively runs away from your plot hooks. They're not invested then, so I'd find out why. Sorry, I have allergies and it's snowing outside. Okay, so if they're actively running away from it, I'd be worried that they, either the players, feel like they're not strong enough to take on that issue, or that the characters are not invested in it. And by run away, do you mean like, oh, there's danger over there and we could die, and so we're not going to do that? Or is it that they just don't seem interested in the plot that you threw at them? I mean, unfortunately, there's two different answers there, depending.
Do they just like being difficult? They think it's funny.
Oh, okay. So, well, you got two options. If they think it's funny, and you don't, I would possibly call a meeting outside of the game and go DM to players, hey guys, are you actually enjoying playing this game with me? Because it's kind of sounding like you're not, and by you guys' actions. And if you're not having fun playing this game, then we should just not play this game. That's how I'd handle that. If, however, they think it's just being funny and you want to be funny back, you are God. At that point, if they are actively avoiding it and think it's funny, this is a joint storytelling session. Yes, they are reacting to the world you put them in. Man, I would totally, depending on the level of the characters, it's time for an Archfey to come in and teleport them off into the Feywild and just ruin their day. Force the campaign. Okay, well, so you want to mess around with it? Great. You're now in the middle of Avantis. You're surrounded in the Brass City, surrounded by demons and devils. What do you do? I mean, now they get to fuck around trying to leave that area. So, how many swear words do I get on Twitch before they ban me? Side note, I should watch my language sometimes. Hey, if Matt Mercer can say queefing on Twitch and get away with it, I'm pretty sure I'm all right. Although he has a much bigger fan base than I do. My 95 viewers. That's how I would do it. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. I guess it would really depend on if you find it funny too. If you find it funny, then yeah, time to screw your players.
Basically, if you cuss a lot, you should mark yourself as mature.
Oh, cool. All right. I will make sure I do that next time. I have no idea if I turned that on my Twitch channel or not. Hey, if Disney can drop an F-bomb, I can like once a stream. I think I'm okay if I do that. There's a whole lot of bone on this thing. Gee, I wonder why.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's my plot hooks. There's my bit on. Let's see, what other good. Oh, the other one I was asked was how to introduce some of the side plots. Well, if going back to my last stream, I talked about the fact that we had the cursed sword. That kind of was a side plot all on its own that we just simply kept secret and nodded at or nudged occasionally for years. So keep forgetting. So that would be part of this. Other ones, it's a brand new instance, you could bring in. My favorite one for one-shots is the mystical magical note that randomly appears in your belongings that only you can read, giving you instructions to arrive at a certain place at a specific time. This is the way that I have missions set up for most of my one-shots, because it's very simple, it's very straightforward, and
it's PG-13 now.
Okay, cool. So that's one way to set up a good plot, device, I guess you could call it at that point. The most common ones, of course, are, hiring a group of people to take on something. So it's either a group of people is hiring the party to do something. We could, there's always it's the greater good as another option. You especially the parties on board for that kind of campaign, you could just lay it out like, the villages are being attacked, you must surround them, and you just happen to be here. I had a friend of mine tell me about a Scooby-Doo kind of campaign that he ran, where all the adventurers happened to be staying at the same inn at night, when the inn was locked down and haunted, very much like the Mansion movie that Disney brought out with Eddie Murphy. Anyway, where nobody could leave until the murder was solved, of the haunting spirit kind of thing. That was a cool way, I thought, of doing that. Yeah, it's my phone. Let's see there. So that was I thought a cool way to start it off as a
Haunted Mansion.
Haunted Mansion. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So there definitely is a nice way of doing it that way. The other one, which actually I think is kind of new, is if you want to use some of what's in Tasha's Cauldron of Many Things, the group patron option is now a good way to get the party involved in a plot right off the bat. You know, everybody being contacted by a deity to do something is almost like the ultimate power, or the ultimate group being, powerful person coming to the group and asking to do something. So, side note on painting, I am a sloppy ass painter and I'll fix it in post. Get it on there and then we can go back and fix it later. And yeah, no, I should totally have painted this before I assembled it. I'm just totally confirming that, because this is what I'm doing to go through to paint the backside of the leg, is shadicking the paintbrush all the way through. But like I said, I got overzealous and I got all the parts out, and I just really wanted to see what this thing looked like when I got it all done. So, because it's really cool looking. All right, there we go. I mean, the skull. Oh, I'm totally planning, I think I'm just leaving the inside of that skull with the black, or maybe just going in right to the very back where there's the concaves and just putting like a dot of red way back in the recess. I think that's going to look pretty awesome.
Pretty creepy.
Pretty creepy looking. But yeah, I think that's going to be pretty cool. So let's see. What else can I say about plot hooks? I don't know what else I can say about plot hooks. That's really about it. If you have a plot device that you'd like to use, then just use it. I mean, you're playing a game, for Pete's sake. I know we all want to be as creative and try and get people involved, but sometimes, yeah, just being blunt with your players is really the best way to go about it, because, I mean, ideally they want to play the game, so... And maybe they even have a suggestion on how to make it go a little bit better, or to throw in a different plot device. I think one of my legs is a little loose. No, it's good still. Alright, well, I think I've talked plot hooks to death.
Plot hooks for evil campaigns? Question mark.
Oh. Well, I mean, the same ones go, really. I mean, you can still have an evil deity come in and tell you, it's time to kill everybody! Plot, okay, I could cover you plots, but actual plot hooks, I mean, that's, again, you're trying to look, okay, a plot hook is really, what is a plot hook? A plot hook is a way to get people to do something. I would totally say that, a plot hook for an evil campaign is you're trying to figure out what the characters want. If the characters want gold, riches, and power, then by all means, I mean, I would love to see an evil campaign where you're told, like, if you help me become a lich, I will make you generals in my undead army. And then we're off to the races, and we're collecting all the pieces to make a phylactery. But I mean, yeah, that would be the first thing. But what's evil? Really? Let's talk about that. Do we really want to have that discussion? Because really, what's evil to one person is perfectly normal to another. So what is evil? That's a really open-ended question. I don't think I have enough time to philosophically debate what is actually evil. All right, so plot hooks. Okay.
To be evil.
To be evil. Okay, fine. So, a hero accidentally wanders into your camp and lets you know that there is a band that the local lords have hired a band of adventurers and mercenaries and sellswords to root out the evil in the land. Well, considering you're part of that evil, it's time for you to protect your swamp. So you grab your ogre things and go for... Oh, wait. I think we did this movie once. Protect your swamp. I mean, that's actually a pretty good example. Who's evil in that situation? Was it Shrek, or was it the king who wanted the ogre out of the swamp because he was scaring people, because he just wanted to be left alone? Ooh. I mean, if we go back to Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog, who's really the evil character in that? Who's the protagonist and who's the antagonist in Dr. Evil sing-along blog? Disgust. I'm over here getting verklempt.
Hey, husband, your juice showing.
My juice showing? Oh, I'm so sorry.
Better wake it up.
That was for the good old days of Saturday Night Live. Anyway, sorry. Back when Mike Myers. Ugh.
Back when SNL was actually good.
Yeah, back when SNL was good. And I just have not been able to get into any of the recent seasons of SNL. Just the talent is just not there anymore. Not since Tina Fey left. I'll say that much. Not since Tina Fey left. Okay, I am totally aging myself at this very moment by discussing SNL. Oh, God. Man, I've become that guy. Alright, well, okay, since we beat plot hooks to death, do we want to do something serious, or do we want to talk about something lighthearted?
Nobody's commenting.
That's fine. I don't care. We'll just go. We'll talk about something lighthearted.
No, I was just waiting to see if somebody does say anything.
I will say this much. Okay, so this has been the serious part. I want to talk about something that's really been pissing me the flock off as of late when it comes to D&D. And actually, no, honey, you and I had this discussion, but it's just been something that's been bugging the daylights out of me. Even more, especially as of late. Keep forgetting the camera is now here. I shifted where the camera went. I need more white paint. I don't understand gatekeepers. I don't. I just can't get behind somebody is enjoying the same thing that you enjoy, and so you're going to make fun of them for it and make them feel like they're not wanted in the community around the same thing. Fandom isn't a pie where if somebody eats a slice, there's less for you. In fact, it's almost the opposite. Mm-hmm. Like, the more popular something becomes, the more content is made for that thing. So wouldn't you want more people to like the thing that you like? So why would you tell somebody or make somebody else feel bad for expressing an interest in something that you also you love, and then make fun of them or make them feel bad for liking it or not being a true fan? I mean, really? I don't get it. It makes no sense at all to me. I just don't get it. I really wish somebody would explain that to me, because really, it really boils down to making me feel like that they think that their fandom or their like or their hobby is finite, like it's gonna be used up, and what the heck? I just and I'm seeing it a lot more in D&D, and maybe it's because I'm paying a lot more attention to, various threads, or paying attention to the current state of the Twitter community for D&D or the Facebook communities in D&D. And it's not just D&D. I've actually seen it even in like the 3D printing communities that I'm part of. And it just, again, drives me absolutely crazy. Like, why would you do this? It does not make sense. It does not make sense to me.
Doesn't matter, baby.
But
You don't like it when Daddy's going off.
Am I wrong? Am I wrong? Does it just boggle other people, or is it just me? Because I don't know. For me, here's my anti-gatekeeping speech. If I really enjoy something, let's say D&D, painting minis, and 3D printing. Let's just take those three things.
Stop.
Like, if I'm really into it, and somebody else who I'm friends with, or that I know or I meet, expresses an interest in that, my first thing that I think of is, ooh, you like this thing? Let me talk to you about it and express how great it is and how wonderful it is and how much fun you're gonna have, and let's talk about let's get you involved. And you can ask my youngest daughter, okay, Lilith, when she's had a friend come over to the house and express any interest in D&D, they walk out of my house with a set of dice and a character sheet, because I want people playing D&D. The more people playing D&D, I feel like the longer that it's going to be around, the longer it's going to last. And let's face it, as screwed up as it sounds, actually, Sly Flourish in one of his streams recently this week actually made a comment that 5e actually was put together so well that all the extra supplements and books aside, as long as the three main books, you have a copy of the three main books, the internet could die and we could go back to the Stone Age, and if you have a copy of those three books and one set of dice, you can play D&D with a group of your friends. That's it. And that is just still an awesome thing to understand. So you don't need an internet connection. You don't need D&D Beyond. I love D&D Beyond, by the way. Don't ever say otherwise. I love what they've done for it too, because they've taken a lot of the math out of it for me, and math was never my strong suit. I am definitely a creative person, and math was always the hard part for me. Let's try and figure out Thaco.
And I also like the fact that everything is right there for you.
Oh, yeah.
For you as the DM, you're not having to flip through so many different character sheets in a binder, trying to keep track of it all, trying to make sure, they leveled, did I update it?
Yep.
It's all right there on the website for you.
Yep. And what is the points when they level? Like, is it, if you're doing experience points, do they level in, what is the next tier? What's the next breaking point, right? Yes. Although I have to admit, I have really started liking Milestone, so.
Yeah.
But that's a totally different, that's a whole nother story. But yeah, so, like, what, I don't get it.
While I'd love a philosophical discussion, it's a little hard when I have to type all my responses. I keep having to put my paintbrush between my teeth to paint.
Oh. All right, I'm going to point out.
And then you got to preach.
I'm going to point out, you got text-to-speech on your phone. Hey, Google, say this. Oh, no, I don't know. Or to hit the microphone button. But, yeah, so I'll tell you this much right now, though, especially when it comes to D&D. I want more people playing D&D. That's my dog whining. I want more people playing D&D, so much so that I bought extra essentials kits, but I couldn't find a donation box for Toys for Tots to give them away this Christmas. So I am just waiting for somebody's birthday to say, I want to play D&D, or I want to get into D&D, and I have an essentials kit for you. You have a birthday coming up, you want to get into D&D, tell me, send it to me if you live at least in Michigan, and I will meet up and I will give you an essentials kit, because I want people to play D&D. I want people to get into 3D printing. I can show you how you can do what and print this dude, okay? The file for this guy is only $10, and then you own the file, and you can print him as many times as you want. And I actually am tempted to print a second one, because I really think that would really throw a loop for everything.
Hey now, wait a minute.
But
you're not literally trying to kill your party.
The printers I use are $150 or $160 with shipping included. The filament runs you $20 to $30 a roll. So this file, the printer, and a roll of filament under $200, and you can be printing. And this guy didn't even take a full spool of filament. Okay, so yeah. I hope you understand. I would love to get people into 3D printing, and so yeah. Why would I want? Because you're into it now. Suddenly, it's not cool. That's about the only thing I can think of is.
Get away from them.
I think that's the concept is that you're not. They no longer are special. That's the thing that people why they gatekeep is that if somebody else is into it, then it's no longer special for them.
You're the sandbox bully. You can't have two people who like Spider-Man.
Right.
There can only be one.
But that still makes no sense.
I didn't say it made sense. I said it's just their logic.
No.
As illogical as that sounds, that's just how they feel. Is that you can't like the same thing I do. Well, you can't like it because you don't like the same way I do.
Right. Or it doesn't. They have this weird impression in their head that if you like it, it somehow detracts or deters or makes it less special for them.
Yeah. Now I have to like Batman because you like Spider-Man. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I purposely try and find stuff that, that I enjoy, but I'm not going to not like something just because it's popular. And that's what it really boils down to. I have, I will admit it, I like Critical Role. That's my type. That is definitely my cup of tea. I have met plenty of people who don't like Critical Role, and that's just fine too. It's not your... But yeah, but when your argument is that Critical Role is not true D&D, go and jump off a cliff. Because...
What is true D&D?
What's true D&D? A hack and slash like Diablo? I don't care. A hack and slash game running through a dungeon, just like playing Diablo, is D&D. A heavily cerebral game with no dice where it's all just role-playing is still D&D. What? There is... Anyway, I'm sorry. I feel like I just kind of went off on a tangent there. But yeah, there's my bit about gatekeeping.
Nobody's complaining on here, so...
That's my complaint. That's my issue. There is no reason to gatekeep other than to be...
A dick.
An asshole. A shining reason... Dog found his toys.
I just hope he didn't knock anything over. Hold on. Now that I can print a dozen minis in a couple hours, it's taken away the preciousness of these minis, and I love it.
Right.
No more worrying about messing up my box of $100 lizard men when I can paint as many as I want. Totally agree.
Yeah, I totally agree. I have a bunch of hours into printing this guy. I'd say about 2 days worth of printing on one printer to make this guy. But part of that is because I printed the skull at a higher resolution or thinner layer heights than I did the rest of it. Certain parts I wanted to print at a better rate so that they came out better. So it did take it a bit. But so that is if you're gatekeeping basically because you think if somebody else likes it it's less special, you're a big problem. You're probably one of the reasons why How deep do I want to get into this complaint and rant? I'll make one comment on this. The same people in some of the D&D groups that I'm part of that I see usually gatekeeping and usually trying to tell people that they aren't true role players or truly into D&D or not playing D&D the right way are also the same ones who I constantly see complaining about not having a group to play with or not being able to find a consistent game. And I have to wonder why.
Because you're a jackass.
Maybe it's not everybody else. Maybe it's you.
What?
And in at least in one case, I went back through this guy's posts, and I totally trolled him. Not trolled him. I totally cyber stalked this or Facebook stalked this guy who was constantly complaining in one of the groups that I'm in. And I went back through a bunch of his posts, and I even found posts where he was like, "Yeah, man, I can never get a game with any women involved in it." Well, if you weren't a sexist pig, maybe women would want to play in a game with you. You want to know? It's not a lack of women in gaming. It's a lack of women wanting to play with male chauvinist pigs. Both of my gaming groups, the majority of them are women. And I have absolutely no problem with it. I didn't set out to make it that way, but that's just the way it fell, and that's who all wanted to play games and wanted to play the game that I wanted to play. Aha, there's the other key. They wanted to play the same type of role-playing game the same type of game that I wanted to play, that I wanted to DM. So I had a whole bunch of women who play in my games, and you know what? They have a blast, and they're great, and they can.
Currently, one guy to 4 women.
Well, players. One male player to 4 women players in my Wandering Few campaign.
Yeah, currently speaking.
Not the way we set it out, but that's just the way it's been. And I am fine with it, and the women are fine with it.
And your male player is fine with it too.
Yeah, you know,
He doesn't care.
It has no bearing on the game.
No.
But yeah, so okay, so I think I've ranted enough about gatekeeping. I will make this my official gatekeeping one, and I probably will not mention it again unless
somebody's stupid again.
Yeah, unless it rears its ugly head. I'm trying to keep this in view so you guys can actually see the leg I'm painting, but I keep forgetting where my camera's at. Yeah, so there's my gatekeeping rant. I think I've gone on for long enough. But yeah, no, and I know that my friend Matt, who was one who made the comment about the fact that he has a 3D a resin printer now and is printing more minis. I'm willing to bet you also feel that you can be more experimentative now, right? You have more lizard men, so you don't feel like this is the only ones you're going to be able to buy because they're $100 frickin'. Thanks, you game sweatshop. You can be more creative with the paint jobs. You can be like, oh, you know what? This group is going to have a purple theme. Why not? Because if they don't like it, I can print a bunch more and we'll make some other ones and so and so. I mean, yeah, there's definitely a freedom from that. Don't get me wrong. I loved Games Workshop. It got me through a lot of my hard troubles when I was a teenager. But I really hate their business model because they almost make you have to spend like $300 a year to continue playing. Now, I've heard that they've changed that with the Squadrons versions, with Sigmar and all this other stuff. But I hate to say it, you'd already lost me. My money is now all going to Wizards of the Coast and WizKids.
Yeah. Matt goes, I feel that there's a specific kind of player who just wants to roll dice, get loot, and there's a place for that kind of dungeon crawler. I love it all. Give me epic dice rolling. Give me whole sessions spent shopping and playing portable games.
Here's the thing.
I like all of it. I do. I like a well-rounded campaign where all of that's involved.
I do too. I like to try and throw a little bit of all of that in. We're going to have those shopping games. We're going to have those sessions where it's that. Here's the thing, though. And again, a dungeon crawl, hack 'em, slash 'em, loot 'em, root 'em kind of game, not a problem.
Yeah, totally.
I have run those games as long as that's the game that everybody wants to play.
Yes.
So in an earlier, again, actually going back to Sly Flourish, which, by the way, if you do not follow Sly Flourish and the Lazy DM, if you're a DM, I highly recommend you follow at least his blog, because he lists some great stuff on how to do, how to DM and how to be a lazy DM. He literally has a book called that, The Lazy DM, where he basically points out how you can put in, I think he puts in 1 hour of prep time for every 2 hours of gameplay or something like that. That's how he sets things up. Anyway, and one of his, he was talking about the fact that there are different types of players and different types of games. And the question is actually, he talked about the fact that he does basically a pre-game interview with potential players of his games to figure out exactly what kind of player they are, what their player motivations are, and what kind of game are they looking for. I do something similar, except it's not necessarily an interview. I have a Google form that I send out occasionally when I'm looking for new players to have anybody who would like to play games with me fill out. And I know that Matt has seen this form because he filled it out already. That or his wife filled it out for him. Don't know how that worked. But I have found that really helps me because it helps me line up the game that I want to play with players who want to play the same game. Now, my one-shots and stuff like that, where if it just needs to be a root-em-loot-em, sure, we can totally play that game. I just want to make sure that the players all want to play that same game. Everybody walks in with the same expectations.
Well, Matt just said, Mark would good at knowing at least some of the players' expectations / being able to roll with those expectations.
Yes, exactly. And you need and I'm okay with expectations and desires, shall we put it that way, changing even as the game progresses, you know? I really want to focus on character growth for this character. Great. Well, once we finish that arc, now what do you want to do? Yeah. I haven't the foggiest clue. I'm going to support everybody else. You know, that's a great option too. I totally missed this back leg back here.
Oops.
I missed the inside of it. I missed painting it. This is also the reason why Haven puts a lot of colors on a lot of it, because I forget spots or I miss spots. But, yeah.
I plead the fifth.
I plead the fifth. I don't know what he is pleading the fifth to. I'm guessing the wife thing. Sorry, you guys get a really good shot of the bottom of this guy because I'm painting inside one of those really hard to reach areas again because I decided to assemble this and then paint it. I will totally say that this would have been a lot easier to paint
you
unassembled.
You assembled it because you liked sitting there looking at it and giggling maniacally while I looked at you with the complete sheer terror across my face.
Yes. I will say that I did laugh maniacally as I built this thing, while cursing a few times as I broke the chains and had to reprint them again.
A few times, yeah.
But yeah. That's looking okay, that's looking really cool. Okay, sorry.
That is looking super cool.
I'm so happy. Dude, not that he actually watches this, but this is an awesome model, Tom. I totally am happy as hell with this guy. Yeah, we're going to go to the top now.
That's looking super cool.
Yeah, when this... actually, you can... Amanda will back this up. When they posted this in the Kickstarter, that this was one of the stretch goals, I squealed. I was like, oh my god, look at this thing. This is going to be awesome. And I can't wait to print one and put it on the table. And I didn't, unfortunately, right away because I was in the middle of like a bunch of other projects and doing a bunch of other stuff. Actually, I know what happened. I started printing a lot of, ear savers and face shields and stuff. And so I kind of got distracted with, other things that, and then I needed more tiles for specific adventures.
Unfortunately,
COVID kind of got in the way a little bit. But I'm not complaining about printing off the face shield stuff and
and
the ear saver stuff.
It just definitely took some time away from what you wanted to print.
Yeah, because this was like, it did take a while and was almost like an entire weekend straight just for this guy. Now having the two printers does make it a little bit easier because I can split the parts up between the two and print them off. Oh wait! Actually, I want to show something to Matt if he's still paying attention. I was really, really, really pleased with something else that I got from Fat Dragon as part of this same Kickstarter, by the way, that I thought printed super, super well on my FDM. I swear almost like resin quality out of my little FDM printer here. So, hold on, we're gonna the gorillas.
Oh, your undead gorillas! We beat the snot out of Sunday.
Let's grab 2 of them. Now, excuse my horrible paint jobs on these guys, but I'm gonna see if I can do this. So,
and you're currently working with the Ender 2 Pros.
I have an Ender 3 Pro. 3 Pro.
Excuse me.
I don't know if this was working.
It's a little better. Not the greatest.
It's not zooming in like I want it to. Is it working? No.
Unfortunately, I have a bit of a lag from when you zoom it up to when the camera actually The video
All right.
pops in for
Well,
me.
I will take a couple of really good shots of these guys. The quality came out super tight for these being an FDM printer.
That actually looked a little better when you put it on the webcam from your
Okay.
laptop.
So like, there's the backside. Look at all that fur and texture, and I tried to put some green inside of it, and like the spine is showing. So that's what I'm getting on my FDM. I really do feel like that is almost as good as some of the resin printers to get that kind of detail.
Yeah, you're getting a lot better shot from that camera.
I mean, that's pretty freaking awesome. Yeah. I was super stoked when I printed those. And the funny part is they dropped those.
He said you think he saw photos and they look great.
Yeah. They dropped those on a Thursday. I can't remember. I literally downloaded the files immediately, and that night printed the first set out over on the first two, because it took about 5 hours a mini. So it took 10 hours for the first two, and then I put the other two on, then to print during the day. I had some of the very first ones actually ever printed and then posted on Facebook that they were done, and then proceeded to create and homebrew the stats for them in 5e and post them up, which is cool because now not only are basically my stats for this dude as well as those gorillas are now being used in other people's campaigns, and I find that to be awesome. I maybe didn't come up with the model, but the fact that I was able to basically I basically took the giant baboon, the giant ape, and mixed and or maybe it was just a regular ape. I took like the regular ape and added some of the undead qualities that zombies have, and then upped the CR and then maxed out their HP points. It's basically all I did. They're just hit point. They basically are just walking hit points. Super easy to hit.
But have a hell of a lot of fucking life in them.
Yeah, they had a heck of a lot of life in them. As well as they are actually part of, in this campaign we're running, they are part of undead constructs, which is something that I've been working a lot with in this campaign. This arc of the campaign is all about the undead, and the party is having to deal with the fact that there is basically a mad scientist who is playing around with necromancy and mixing creatures. So it's Frankenstein meets Frankenstein and I'm trying to think of some like the Night of the Living Dead mixing together. One of their first inclinations they had of this was a zombie constrictor snake that I had used the rules for troll regeneration mixed into this undead zombie constrictor snake. And the same properties are now carried over into those gorillas. Except I used the undead, the zombie constitution rolls, unless they used fire to kill it. Which I had as a tie over from the troll. The doctor's getting better with his constructs, and playing around with other creatures. So yeah, that was part of it. I think that's really awesome. Anyway, that's my woo Squirrel Girl moment there.
Reduce, reuse, reanimate.
Yep. Hey, necromancy is just a cleric who was a little late. It takes a Viking to raise a village and a necromancer to bring them back. Sorry. I'm not that funny. You can ignore me. I'm being really stupid sloppy around the top here because there's all this little detail of these bolts and the ropes and stuff. I'm actually hoping that by actually painting some of these ropes in the white a little bit, that it'll actually help bring out some of the browns and give me some texture in the rope. Because I don't know if you can see that, but there's actually like this rope detail all the way around the top of these tusks. These teeth. I don't know what you're gonna call these. I think they're teeth. So either way, it's still stinking cool. I wasn't one of the first guys to print the Deathwalker, though, unfortunately. Lots of other guys have printed them off and already have them painted up. And I was the first person to come up with the D&D 5e rules, though. So I will take that one, or at least to publish them. Other people may have already come up with them. They just didn't share them with the rest of the world. So, yeah. I also will show you the Death Tyrant I was working on last time. We finished that guy up, and the party, we left it with the party finding said Death Tyrant. Specifically, the druid run by Lilith finding the tyrant by flying into a cave or to a cavern room with and doing some scouting ahead, shall we say, as a giant bat floating around. And she went down into this hole with some arcane energy, green arcane energy glowing out of it. Failed her stealth roll as a bat, and proceeded to gain the attention of said Death Tyrant as it floated out of that hole. But she said she just flew out and I was acting like a normal bat, and then proceeded to play possum and play dead in front of the Death Tyrant. As the Death Tyrant, while paranoid still, was also wondering how a bat got in here. So he wasn't necessarily like on alarm edge, but he definitely was like, what's this bat doing here? So he's more like his curiosity's been piqued, and the rest of the party just now is caught up with said bat and is standing outside of that room. And that is where we're going to start the next session off. They beat up on my gorillas, took out the 2 gorillas I threw at them. Giant zombie undead gorillas that ignore pain. And are now facing off with a Death Tyrant and 2 zombies that are currently just standing by in this big cave room in a mine that was attacked by the undead army. So yeah, that'll be fun. And I think the Death Tyrant actually came out really well. I'm actually kind of pleased now. I was a little worried about printing it out in the black filament, because I was a little worried about it being hard to paint. But kind of like this guy where I painted it off, and this is the same filament, by the way. I did the same thing I did with this skull, where I left the eyes and all the holes open, and it actually came out really cool. What am I saying? It's right freaking here. So we're gonna do it by the small one again. So there's my Death Tyrant. And yeah, I could have picked out a lot more detail, but I think just painting him in the bone white and then just leaving it that way, and except for the eye socket, I think just came out really well. So yeah, there you go, Death Tyrant. Yeah, it is literally an undead beholder. It's got some cool rules. I mean, everybody loves beholders, right? Now let's make them undead and obsessed with death. It's an iconic, beholders are iconic to D&D. As much as everybody loves fighting, I actually feel like a beholder is almost more iconic than dragons are in D&D these days. Correct me if I'm wrong, but if you look at a lot of the literature, you constantly see them talking about beholders more than anything else. Don't get me wrong, I have plans for throwing dragons in here too. In fact, actually, at the beginning of this section of the campaign, one of the first things that the players saw was a Draco Lich that showed up in the city, stole the casket of a fallen dwarven hero that they were all there to mourn the loss of, and then flew away with him. That's how we started the beginning of this chapter 2 of the Wandering Few campaign. We started with an undead Draco Lich. Because why not? Yeah, I like this. I might only get all the white on by the time we get done with this, because we're already at like a little after 10 already. But I still think you guys are going to get the idea. We're going to paint the wood, the rest of this, like the wood side's all wood. The battering ram is going to be wood. The rope, obviously, I'm going to paint with some, I'm going to try like a different color brown, try to make it look more like hemp, you know. And then, even though I'm painting it just in the white, I'm going to go over and throw some washes of grays and stuff over the bone. I have some ivory or like some khaki color. I was going to try and see if I can't give the bone that little bit more of an aged look. So it looks like these bones were dug up, you know, and repurposed after they've been in the ground for a while, not like freshly slaughtered. But yeah, and then the chains and stuff, I've got some different colors, metallics and stuff. I'm planning on trying to make them actually look a little rusted, like they repurposed the chains from something else, like this entire thing was created from recycled products, you know. Recycle, reuse. But yeah, no, I think that's coming out pretty. Oh, now I gotta go back over here because I missed the bottoms on this side. But yeah, no, it's yeah, I was really happy with this. Okay. Oh yeah. So I figured I'm going to try and bring up at least one monster. I just talked about beholders, but actually I want to talk about other things. For DMs, I was we actually had a combat recently in the Wandering Few because I came across chatting with some other DMs about lower level monsters that are underused or underappreciated. And I came across one that even I had forgotten even existed. And let's talk about the different types of elementals, specifically the Invisible Stalker. And if you have not actually looked this up, it is an air elemental that is summoned with a specific purpose to either gather something or to hunt something or hunt somebody or to kill somebody. And once it has fulfilled that contract, it is released and then sent back to its elemental plane. Now, what makes it really cool about this is that it allowed me to actually do a full-on combat encounter, and we did it fully theater of the mind. But part of that was because while we still use a couple of the minis to give people an idea of where people were in relation to each other, they could not see the stalker if it was not actively attacking. So it made for a really cool combat encounter that, while being a lower level creature, still threw the party for a loop. They couldn't see it, so we had a rogue running around trying to kick up dust with her cloak and her feet. We had our cleric casting shape water and forming a very thin globe of water around them to make so that it had to go through the globe to attack them, and they could spot it ahead of time. But it made for a really cool encounter with a very low-level monster. So again, if you haven't actually thrown an Invisible Stalker, if your BBG knows that the heroes are coming, has a scent for them, or even if like a minor minion has some summoning skills or knows a wizard or a sorcerer kind of thing, and you're looking for an interesting encounter to throw at them to make it more cerebral and to give them a chance to, because brute force is not going to do it. Our Angie, our fighter, she did more damage to everybody else because the Invisible Stalker kept slamming into her and knocking her into everybody else she was standing next to. But you can't hit it. You can't do damage to it. So look into it. It's a really cool monster to throw, especially just to change it up. If you've been throwing, large monsters or armies of monsters at your players and they've been kind of walking through it, a monster they cannot see is a great one to throw at them, just to change it up, give them a loop, make them think on their feet too, especially since in this case I threw it at the party, and the stalker was hunting Remy's mother, who they had just met the session before, and so they were trying to protect this NPC who was strong on her own, but just was getting wailed on by this stalker and just, would be getting hit out of nowhere. Or what looked like out of nowhere because they couldn't see it. It's literally invisible unless you use some kind of magical means or other means to make it detectable. Lots of fun. I highly recommend it. It's a really cool a monster to use. Also, again, I feel like almost every campaign should have at least one beholder in it. But that's just me. And I like killing my players. Maybe not killing them. The last beholder I threw at a party immobilized the bard for the entire encounter, and she was not happy about it. So, yeah, throw beholders at them. So what would your most underappreciated monster from D&D would be? If you have a comment, please feel free to put it in the chat window now to activate engagement. My other one is Knowles, by the way. If I had to actually choose a favorite favorite minion, or favorite lower level monster, Knowles. I love Knowles. Jackal humanoids that get a rampage. Like if they hurt somebody or they knock somebody out, they can just move and attack somebody else. With pack tactics, so they get bonuses when multiple of them are attacking at once. Love them.
I love owlbears.
Owlbears are awesome too, I will admit.
They're so far one of my go-tos.
Yeah. Owlbears are awesome. Which I'm really happy, actually, that back before, the world went to crud, we were able, as a gaming group, to go down to Fanfare and have everybody paint owlbears.
So much fun.
Oh, man. I mean, that's one of the reasons we have...
They're behind. They're not going to see them.
4 owlbears behind me. Actually, they're right over my shoulder. You can see them. Right over there. Anyway, we have 4 owlbears over there because I'd already bought one. Because owlbears, man, owlbears. I'd already bought one and painted it up, and then we did this paint thing, and so we have one that Lilith painted. We have one that Calla painted, and then mine. And since I'd already painted one that was like normal, I wanted to be weird, so I actually painted mine gold with silver accents and stuff, and a little bit of green for tarnish, based off of an old movie that had an owl in it. And this is the part where people can go and Google the daylights out of it and try and find the old movie with an old mechanical brass or gold and brass owl in it. And that's what I based it off of.
Well, Matt's comment was, "What's that? Got a wizard feeling a little too big for his britches? Beholders!"
Yes.
It's a great equalizer for the butthead player.
Yep. And I actually, so the worst part is I actually have like a bone to pick with beholders going back from when I was a player. And I actually lost a character to a beholder. It's also one of the things that taught me never to charge into a situation without really investigating it, no matter how cocky you are. I lost I had a character become completely petrified, turned to stone by a beholder.
Dude.
And
Doofus.
To this day, actually, I don't think I mentioned this, so we can go back and actually give you a little bit of canon going all the way back to the starts of the Wandering Few. It was in the game with a bunch of my friends many, many years ago. My swashbuckling elf decided to try and take out the leader of a temple in a drow city. And we knew the route that this leader was carried back and forth, the high priest, shall we say, of this temple in this drow city. And so we scoped it out, and we figured out where he was going to be. And he was carried in one of those like covered, what are those things called? Anyway, the covered carriage is carried by like 4 or 5 guys, right? So we follow the procession from his residence to the temple. Find the spot we're gonna jump him at. I figure I'm going to be arrogant, and I swing down, grab a rope, jump down, and I go swinging in and attack this the guy inside of the covered carriage thing, and find out that the leader of this temple is a beholder. The DM said he rolled randomly for what eye struck me It was the petrification one. I flew out the other side, starting to get petrified. Stood up, tried to get away, and ended up, because I was so far away from the party and now surrounded by drow, there was no way I was getting out of it. So that character, that swashbuckler, in that game was then still in that city and eventually became the centerpiece of in my canon, became the centerpiece of a fountain where a bunch of drow are peeing on him as part of a fountain. I then brought that canon into the Wandering Few and put it in a drow city that I created, making it that same city that is run by a beholder, that has a temple that is run by a beholder. They just never came across it. My players didn't. But they did come across that statue of that hero being peed on by drow. And I threw it in there just as a nod to me because I felt like that was something that needed to be done. And I wanted to have reference to that because, as a DM, I have all of these characters I created. Why not recycle them a bit and bring them in? So I made that character's backstory part of this world too. I did throw a couple of plot hooks at the players originally, way back in the very beginning, that they missed or that they just didn't bother to pursue. And one of them was that hero. So we'll see if that comes back at any point. I think, unfortunately, I am kind of good with all of the white. Although, I'm going to turn my little fan on I have here and let it finish drying up some of this. Oh, sorry about that. I moved the camera. We good? We good? Earthquake! Okay, cool.
Yeah, a little shaky, but you're good.
I think, actually, I'm gonna let this be at this point. I could start painting all of the wood and stuff, but at this fact that we're almost, to my hour and a half, 2-hour time limit, I was trying to make sure I get this done by 10. I'm just going to simply give you a chance to look over some of the other stuff that I've done because I wanted to show off one of the things that I picked up. So I'm going to gently pick up grab him by the teeth. We'll move him over here. All right. And since this camera was actually showing the minis better, we'll use just what I thought would be the crappy camera.
I really like Blights, and I love Hags as more of an NPC frenemy.
Oh, Hags are awesome. I love Hags. Hags are really cool. I haven't done much with Blights, but I might now. I might look into that. I'm going to kill the giant overhead and see if it actually helps me. Oh, cool. Maybe. No, it's just not Blight. And you guys... Oh, I didn't even realize the red thing was showing for you guys. I'm sorry. All right, so I picked up a Scorpion, which I thought came out pretty well. I really like Scorpions. I didn't realize their CR was really low, so I did what most people do in this situation. I printed another one. I'm going to try and find a way to throw some Scorpions at them. All I did was just black with a blue wash over the top of it and then threw some brown for the bottom. I mean, super simple paint job, but unfortunately with my monsters, unless it's a monster I have a lot of effort into, I've been throwing basically some of the bare minimum quick splash and dash of paint and kind of taking the same theory that I take with some of the terrain, which is if it looks good at 3 feet. If it looks good at 3 feet, it's good enough. If it looks, because most people are not going to get down to the detail. And I was really nitpicking myself and tearing apart some of my terrain painting because it was so haphazard and I wasn't getting all the spots and everything. But really just doing a base coat and then doing layers of dry brushing over it to bring out the highlights was more than enough to make all my terrain look really good at 3 feet or in pictures. If you follow me, you've seen the pictures I posted.
None of the players cared.
None. Okay, so I did a huge map once, right? And I was upset because I didn't have enough pieces of the dungeon tiles, which have larger squares on the bottom, right? And so I had to grab some of the castle pieces, which I painted similarly. So that was the gray stone with black wash and a lighter gray dry brushing over the top of it to bring out a few of the details. I felt upset that I had to do that because I'm a perfectionist. And to me, I looked at this map and I could see the 2 tiles that had brick as opposed to the stone. We get through the entire session and nobody noticed. Nope. I did, but I'm a perfectionist. So the other one I wanted to give you guys an update. So I was doing these guys last time, right? So this is those the sewer tiles I was working on, where I want to make them look like red brick with the masonry work. Well, unfortunately, doing the gray wash over the red did not really work. And so this is what I started doing. I actually went back in after I put more of the red on, after I finished painting it last session. And I went through and I actually put gray. I literally just painted gray into every single crack, just like you do mortaring. Or if my brother was here to tell me exactly, I went back in and did a point work inside of my masonry. And I filled all that gray in. I'm now going to go in with some of the red and fix some of the gray that splashed over, and I might not do it to all of it, because if you've actually looked at some of the brickwork that's out there in real life, there's a grout that's all over the place on some of it, depending how sloppy they were. And really, it's a sewer. So would they really put a lot of detail into it? I take that back. They would if it was under a church, and I say that because I've been under the churches in Kalamazoo, and there's some of the most beautiful sewer system I've ever been in has been in under the churches of Kalamazoo, where crosses are laid into brickwork and in a drainage sewer. Anyway, sorry, I'm done. But yeah, so there's that update.
The tiles look great.
Yeah, and I'm really hoping to finish this up. Actually, foreshadowing a little bit. I don't know if Annie is still watching at all. Oh, I will be doing. There'll be some green I'm throwing on here. I'm just gonna literally drip it down the side and let it just drip on.
What's your Twitch name?
I thought she was watching earlier. I don't really remember. Corbin.
Muff says to dirty it up.
Oh, maybe it wasn't. Maybe I was dirty. Oh, anyway, but no, so, actually, what am I talking about? She's in Scotland. She's asleep by now. At least she should be. The sewers, I started printing these because that's where they met up with Remy's mother. And if they'd had an encounter, I was going to use these. So I'm hoping that since the Resistance is still using the sewers, I'll get a chance to use these again, and I'll make some kind of encounter actually happen in the sewers. And since a lot of my systems, actually, if you ask Adonis, it happens way too often that my encounters end up in a sewer, at least every once in a while. I'm hoping to get more use out of these too at the same time. I even have some ones that have water flowing out. I'm going to do in translucent blue. It would be cool.
Matt now wants to know if next stream you'll talk about what you were doing under the churches in Kalamazoo.
Sure, I will talk about why I was in sewers under Kalamazoo when I was 10.
Because my husband's a dumbass?
Actually, no, it has less to do with being a dumbass and more to do with the fact that I have very creative friends and we wanted to explore. So the last thing I wanted to mention, though, is that I think I threw this guy out there, and Matt, you'll love paying attention to this. Let's hope the detail shows up. But this is my Haven the Hare as a rabbit miniature, and I am totally trying to make him look like I do at fair. Partially because somebody drew Haven the Hare as a rabbit. So there you go.
I don't know what artist did that.
I made an actual mini for him, and I plan on having him be an NPC in this campaign eventually. So that would be... Actually, I will say that much. Before I sign off, that's my last tidbit of advice, I would say. Going all the way back to the plot hooks in the beginning of this, and maybe... plot hook is a bad idea. Call this a plot device. When I created the Scabard for the Wandering Few, I wanted a mechanism to pass information to my party that sounded legitimate. And so I created a history book that would be passed down or would have been read in my world to give information about my world. And so if you look at the Scabard for the Wandering Few, if you look at information specifically about, like, say, Racem, the country, the countries, the continents, the cities, and the empire and the kingdoms, the information that I gave my players about those locations are from a history book that I created. And that history book was written by Count Ravenos, a.k.a. Haven. And that was my mechanism for giving them tons of information. Yeah, 10:30. We're wrapping it up, and then it'll be time for everybody to go to bed. So yeah, that's a great one. Come up with a history book, and then use that to write your excerpts for your world. You can always, and it can be anything. I picked on my own Ren Fair persona, and made it part of the history of my own world. So there you go, guys. Thanks everybody for watching, and thanks you for tuning in. It's been a blast. I hope you had some fun helping me and also painting this. I will warn you, though, I am going to continue painting this bad boy while we're off stream. Unless I suddenly get a major amount of people telling me to only paint this on the stream, you might be able to delay my player's inevitable doom of coming across this siege engine and everything that it carries. If I'm told to keep painting it only every other Tuesday. And the reason, by the way, I do that is because every other Tuesday that I don't stream, you'll find my butt sitting down and watching Talks Machina, because I do love those characters and those people. So that's the reason we do it every other, is, and it's a schedule that I know I can keep. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you for watching this on YouTube if you catch this when I post it. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, comments, feel free to shoot them to us. haventhehare@gmail.com if you ever want to email me, or post up on the Twitch stream here or on my YouTube channel. Or you can find me on Twitter or Instagram or any of those other places, because, everybody's socials. And it doesn't get said enough, but I love you all. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Oh, wait, no. Oh, I'm forgetting my own tagline. May you make all of life's saving throws. Thanks. Bye.